Manchester United has been in the news a lot lately for all the wrong reasons, for all the right reasons. Great performances over top teams, poor performances over lower teams. I don't want to make this video around the playing staff. I want to make this video around the issue that I think needs to be called out, and that is Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS. So one of the things that I have been watching with keen interest is the impact Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS has had on this team. And so far, the impact that they have had on this team has been largely negative. So what I want to do is I want to create 2 or 3 videos around what INEOS has done since they've taken over this team. And tonight I want to start with the sacking of Dan Ashworth. Cue the music. A newspaper statement was put out that Dan Ashworth will be leaving his role as sporting director of Manchester United by mutual agreement. We'd like to thank Dan for his work and support during the transitional period for the club and wish him well for the future. Now that came as a huge surprise to nearly everybody. Nobody saw it coming. And the reason why nobody saw it coming was that when he left, he'd been on that club only for 5 months and 6 days as their inaugural sporting director. And not forgetting that United paid Newcastle a fee of between 2 million and 3 million to hire Ashworth, who also previously worked at Brighton and West Brom. And when they hired him, he had to go on gardening leave before he joined the club. So he wasn't allowed to start immediately. But this is where things really start getting a little bit weird, in my opinion. So let's start with some of the comments and the publications and the news articles that have been published. There was a question, was due diligence done around Ashworth? Now, I'm a little confused around that one, because they courted him for longer than he stayed at his post at the club. So they really knew who he was, and that's the reason why they went after him. But what had come out was that his vision was not aligned with the vision of Jim Ratcliffe, and that is as reported by the Manchester Evening News. So Ratcliffe asked the questions, was due diligence done around Ashworth before they appointed him? David Brailsworth was put in charge of putting the top structure together. So he brought on Barada, he brought on Wilcox, and he brought on Ashworth. So if there was no due diligence done around Ashworth, then that falls squarely in the lap of Brailsworth. There's nobody else you can blame for it. But I think INEOS or Jim Ratcliffe is looking to apportion blame elsewhere, because did he not describe Ashworth as 10 out of 10? So that is most surprising, in that due diligence was questioned on whether he was a right fit for the club. Very, very surprising as to how that is a reason why he would not be, or he was fired because of that particular instance. So starting with why Ashworth was fired, or the fact that he didn't see eye to eye with Jim Ratcliffe, is this particular statement. Ashworth was not in favor of appointing Ruben Amorim as the new head coach of Manchester United, and he actually recommended a move for England manager Gareth Southgate. Now, they had worked together at the Football Association between 2013 and 2018, and that is reported by the Manchester Evening News. Ratcliffe was also not happy that Ashworth was recommending English managers like Southgate, Eddie Howe and Potter, when Ratcliffe preferred somebody with a bit more charisma. And that is coming out from The Athletic, as reported by Rory Whitwell and Adam Croft. Now, I can understand that. I can understand the fact that, look, anybody that recommends Gareth Southgate, that's already a reason to get fired, because no Manchester United fan would have loved to see Gareth Southgate at the club. In fact, I did a video that I didn't post, because the reason why I didn't post it, because luckily for the Manchester United fans, they'd appointed Ruben Amorim. Because the video was all around why Gareth Southgate would not be a good fit for Manchester United. So I can understand the thinking in saying, well, if you're only going to look at, as a sporting director, you're only going to look at England managers, there could be a possible fallout between Ashworth and Jim Ratcliffe. One of the things that then created some sort of friction within the ranks is that Ashworth got frozen out of the decision-making process at United. The appointment of Ruben Amorim was done by Barada without Ashworth. which Ashworth felt undermined his role, and that was reported by the BBC. Separate sources say Ashworth was not involved in the process of selecting Amron, and that is reported by Manchester Evening News. And the bit that caught me by surprise was that Amron was a candidate that United already had under consideration before Ashworth took over as sporting director on July the 1st. Now keep that date in mind, okay? July the 1st. Keep that date in mind, because July the 1st is a very, very important date for some of the accusations or some of the reporting that came out of the English media further along the line. So this is a bit that caught me by surprise, and I'll leave it up there for a little bit. And this is reported by quite a few outlets: Athletic, The Telegraph, The Times, Rory Whitwell and Adam Croft. Ashworth pushed for the extension of ETH, while Ratcliffe and Barada were against it. Okay, keep that comment in mind. Ashworth blamed for keeping ETH in the summer. Apparently, Ratcliffe and Barada did not want to keep ETH, but was allowed to be convinced by Ashworth to do so. Ratcliffe was of the view ETH should go with a replacement brought in to work with the squad. Barada and Wilcox and Ratcliffe wanted to sack ETH, while Ashworth was a leading voice of support for ETH. And then Ratcliffe wanted ETH sacked, but was convinced by Ashworth not to do so. That was reported by the Times. And then Rory Whitwell is reporting that Ratcliffe was angry at Barada and Ashworth for saying that the extension granted to ETH was before their arrival at Manchester United. Now that is the key point. All of the other messages before that, where they're all blaming Ashworth for hanging on to ETH, is a lot of rubbish. Because Ashworth only started on the 1st of July. The decision to keep Erik ten Hag was done before Ashworth joined officially at Manchester United. Now, yes, what could have happened? They could have been in telephonic contact, where they would have asked Ashworth for his recommendation, and he could have said, hang on to ETH, it will change. Which is naughty. You're not supposed to do that. You're on gardening leave, you're not supposed to take up your post. But the fact that both Barada and Ashworth came out and said that they were not, and I'll put that up here again, if you look at that last sentence, they both said that the extension granted to ETH was before their arrival at Manchester United. So if it was before their arrival at Manchester United, how is Ashworth blamed then for hanging on to ETH and extending his contract? I think again blame is passed on, and it'd be very interesting. Obviously there would have been non-disclosures, NDAs signed when they let Ashworth go. Whatever salary they gave him would have been part of that salary. Would have been, well, okay, you can't come out exactly with the truth. You just got to accept it and keep quiet about it, which most organizations do, sporting organizations, corporate organizations, when there is a payoff for an executive, is that, well, okay, you got to keep quiet. We'll pay you this money, but you got to go, you got to keep quiet. But from where I'm sitting, both Barada and Ashworth said they had nothing to do with the extension granted to ETH. So everything reported by Whitwell, by the Telegraph, by the Times, in saying that they all blamed Ashworth and that everybody else wanted ETH to go, it was Ashworth who decided to hang on to him, to me smacks of finger pointing or shifting the blame. So one of the other things that had come out was that Ashworth lacked authority. And the thing from Ashworth's perspective is that he did not get the authority and power he thought he was going to get in the role. In other words, other people making decisions he felt should be in his sphere of authority, and that's reported by the Telegraph. The BBC is reporting something similar, in that some sources at Old Trafford are speculating that this may be an assertion of authority by Barada. So Barada basically came in, took over, and according to this, pushed Ashworth aside and started to make decisions that was sole domain of Ashworth. And the other thing is, Barada and Wilcox had worked together before, so Ashworth was the odd man out, and that also led to some of the speculation that he didn't get along with the hierarchy. So I agree possibly with the comment that Ashworth felt marginalized in that he wasn't part of the decision-making process, or some of the decision-making was made on his behalf and literally stepping onto his toes and stepping into his sphere of authorization. Also the fact, and this could be the truth, in that Barada and Wilcox had worked together and Ashworth couldn't integrate himself into the old boys club, which basically left him kind of ostracized and put out on the side. So there could be some of the friction that was created within the halls of Old Trafford. And this basically refers to my next slide, where there was a breakdown in relationship with Ratcliffe. This is between Ashworth and Ratcliffe, which is what the Times are reporting. The Times are reporting that tensions between Ashworth and other members of the hierarchy included Ratcliffe. So it wasn't only with Ratcliffe, it was, by the sound of it, Barada, Wilcox, etc. As the Telegraph is reporting, they're reporting the same thing. Ashworth failed to gel with Barada and Wilcox. This is a bit that I take my hat off to Ashworth. And if it is true, which is reported by Rory Whitwell again, is that Ashworth was reluctant to agree to staff reductions and redundancies. Now, if you can remember, INEOS had come in and 200 ordinary staff members, admin staff members, people that probably live paycheck to paycheck, was let go in an effort to save on the wage bill. And he didn't agree with it. Ashworth didn't agree with it. So in my way of thinking, well done to you, mate. Good on you. Ratcliffe praised his team in United We Stand, but he didn't mention Ashworth at all. Initially, Ratcliffe had called Ashworth 10 out of 10. But now he's starting to praise his team and Ashworth doesn't get mentioned in dispatches. And also he would have irritated Ratcliffe by not agreeing to staff redundancies. So again, there's a comment that there were too many cooks. So one of the things that I couldn't quite wrap my head around was, why did you need so many executives? In fact, it looked quite ridiculous at game day when you saw them in the director's box. There was a whole line of directors. How many directors do you need to actually run this club? It would show some of the issues that Ashworth started to have with the other members, with other executive team within the club, and specifically with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So this one I found very, very interesting, in that summer transfers were called into question, and this was reported by The Athletic, which is Rory Whitwell and Adam Kraft. Now I'm a little bit confused on this particular one as well. So let's see who they brought in. They brought in Euro, which is supposedly going to be the next best thing on the block, even hence the reason why Real Madrid was after him. They brought in Mazraoui and De Ligt. Mazraoui has shown up to do very, very well. De Ligt hasn't been bad, but I still have my reservations around him, but that's for a different video. But he is still a quality centre-back. I just don't understand why they went for a Harry Maguire lookalike. And I know the fans are not going to be happy with that comment, because there are fans out there that think De Ligt is really a fantastic centre-back. The point I want to make to you guys is that he failed at Juventus and he failed at Bayern Munich. Two big clubs, came to Manchester United, and he's still very, very young. So you got Mazraoui, De Ligt. In centre midfield, you got Ugarte, which Erik ten Hag didn't want. But if you look at what's happening in centre midfield at the moment, Ugarte is probably one of the better players in that position. And if he doesn't play, they literally give up that centre midfield to anybody who plays against them. Then you have Xerxes up front. And again, in my opinion, youngster, he needs to be given time. Yes, maybe he does not fit the mold of Manchester United, but he's been there for 2 minutes. So guys, you need to give him the opportunity to grow. And if he's not the player that Manchester United is looking for, then they need to move him on. Yes, they need a quality striker. I don't see why they would have gone for Xerxes, especially if they have a younger striker already at the club in Højlund. And what they actually needed was a quality striker. So if you look at all of it, I'm trying to think, have I missed anybody? The actual summer transfer was not that bad, even though quite a bit of it would have been driven by Erik ten Hag and the structure that was in the club already. Now here's my point. I go back to the 1st of July. Dan Ashworth was not at the club when all these guys were bought. When the decision to bring in those players were made and the actual negotiation for those players, he would not have been involved because he was still on gardening leave. So again, blaming him for the transfers could only have happened in two situations, or possibly only one situation, is that he really hadn't gone on gardening leave. Even though he didn't show up at the offices, he was still running the show behind the scenes and making recommendations on the type of players that would come in, which to me is an enormous surprise. Again, it shows that you're not supposed to do that. But if he did do that, then yes, it is on him. But again, as I've just pointed out, yes, it's not the type of players you want to play in an Amaranth style, but at that particular time for Erik ten Hag, the idea was that these are the players that would make the team better. And if you look at it purely on paper, they're supposed to be making the team better. In fact, they're making the team worse. But to blame that on Ashworth really doesn't make any sense in my opinion. So they were saying the way that they brought or that they put together the team was that Ashworth wanted to bring in an external data company, and this is again reported by Rory Whitwell. And Ratcliffe was not impressed. He said, well, why should I pay for an external data company to come and do the data on the players that this team needs, when you, as my sporting director, is supposed to have that knowledge? Hence the reason why we brought you on board. Now, I can relate to that. If you bring somebody on with the knowledge they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're supposed to know what they're supposed to be doing. And if you're going to then go and outsource it to an external data company, then you're definitely not the right man for the job. You can outsource it to get additional information, but you can't make that your ultimate go-to source to tell you what resources to bring. So that again caught me completely by surprise in that, and I agree with Rory Whitwell on the take from Jim Ratcliffe, is that if you brought on with the knowledge and you're supposed to be able to do it, going out to an outsourced company to get you the data for you to make up your mind, it's supposed to supplement what you know, not be the main source of data. And that could possibly be one of the reasons as to why that created so much problem. So as I stated, Wilcox will take over some of the duties of Ashworth in the short term, and that has been reported by the Times. And then United won't rush to find a replacement. So like I said, Wilcox will assume these duties for now, and that is also that was reported by the Telegraph. There's been no communication around looking for another director of sport. In fact, INEOS has gone about their merry way by, in my opinion, not telling the truth to the United fans. Cost cutting in areas where, in some areas it may make sense, but it really doesn't make sense that if you're getting rid of 200 people, if you're getting rid of a £40,000 per annum donation to the Manchester United Player Veterans Fund, that's per annum, that's not 40,000 per month. If you're getting rid of Sir Alex Ferguson as your ambassador, you're looking to sell every player that you have, because initially some players were untouchable. Now Jim Ratcliffe has come out and said, well, any player is available for sale if they can get money off him. This is a guy that kept the Glazers in place by bailing them out to the tune of a 26% share, I think it's 26% share, of over $1 billion, when Qatar was prepared to buy the entire club, get rid of the debt, and none of the crap that you guys see happening at Old Trafford today, and build a new stadium by the way, would have happened under the Qatar buyout. So all that Manchester United has done is they've added another layer of Glazer type running of the club in INEOS. I keep hearing Jim Ratcliffe is a fan and has been a fan of Manchester United. I counter that and I tell you guys, he's a businessman first, his own pocket first, his shareholders first. Manchester United is far down the totem pole when it comes to priorities. He will only prioritize his club to protect his investment. Thanks for hanging out, guys. This has been Insight with Zaid. Cheers.